The sediments of the Cloverly Formation were deposited in alluvial and floodplain environments. The basal conglomerates probably represent braided river deposits, while the sandstones were deposited in fluvial channels. The mudstones that contain most of the fossils represent overbank, lacustrine, and pedogenic deposits. Theropod eggshell fragments are known from the formation. Unidentifiable ornithomimid remains are present and most commonly represented by toe bones. Glyptops is an extinct genus of pleurosternid freshwater turtle known from the late Jurassic of North America. Its skull exhibit adaptations likely for suction feeding. Sauropelta was one of the earliest known nodosaurids. All specimens were recovered from a little sheep mudstone section which has been dated to 108 million years ago. Sauropelta lived in wide floodplains around rivers that drained into the shallow inland sea to the north and east, carrying sediment eroded from the low mountains to the west. Periodic flooding of these rivers covered the surrounding plains with new muddy sediments, creating the Cloverly Formation and burying the remains of many animals, some of which would be fossilized. While Sauropelta was an important part of the Cloverly herbivore guild, the most abundant herbivorous dinosaur of the time was the large ornithopod Tenontosaurus. According to the authors, the fossil has not been deformed by compression, allowing to distinguish it from Sauropelta. The head is domed and the eye sockets are round. A large bone ridge runs transversely across the back of the head. The skull of Aquilops is 8 centimeters long, but the holotype is possibly not from a full-grown individual. A comparison with related species indicates it might have been at 60% of its adult length. Waddell estimated the total body length of Aquilops at 60 centimeters and its weight at 1.5 kilograms. Zephyrosaurus would have been a small, swift, bipedal herbivore. Like Orodromeus, it may have burrowed as well. It is still very incompletely known. Among other distinctive characteristics, it had a steep face, a raised knob on the upper jaw, and a larger knob on the cheekbone. In the arid little sheep mudstone member, Tenontosaurus is the only herbivorous dinosaur, and it shared its environment with the common predator Deinonychus. Teeth and a number of skeletons belonging to this carnivorous theropod have often been discovered associated with Tenontosaurus remains. Perhaps the most striking feature of Tenontosaurus is the tail, which actually takes up more than half the total body length. This tail was supported by a network of strong tendons which ensured it was always carried erect off the ground. Rugocaudia is a potentially dubious genus of basal titanosauriform sauropod dinosaur. When fully grown, Sauroposeidon was virtually attack-proof, since even the largest predator known to be active in North America at the time, Acrocanthosaurus, would have probably been less than half the length and many times lighter than Sauroposeidon. However, before an individual attained this size, it would need to spend many years as a much smaller juvenile, and here is where the danger of predators like Acrocanthosaurus would have been at its greatest. The cervical ribs that supported the girth of the neck also suggest that the neck was lightly built despite its large size. Acrocanthosaurus immediately sticks out from other large theropods with its high dorsal spines that run from the neck to the tip of the tail. There have been many artistic representations for this structure, from the spine standing proud from the body, to supporting a flap of skin. Modern thinking, however, comes from the examination of the lower spines that have attachments for muscles. This has led to the suggestion that the spines supported a hump of tissue that ran down the length of Acrocanthosaurus. Deinonychus was well suited for using its forelimbs to grasp onto its prey, but like with Velociraptor, the killing claw on the second toe of each foot seems to be better suited for stabbing than slashing. It could be that the claw was used to stab at a critical spot such as the neck. It may even have been used as a defense against others of its species for territorial defense or in pack domination fights. The only thing that we can be relatively sure of is that the old idea of a Deinonychus slashing open a dinosaur's belly in a single stroke is not very likely. Microvenator was an oviraptorosaurian theropod. The holotype fossil is an incomplete skeleton, most likely a juvenile with a length of 1.3 meters, and consequently, the adult size remains uncertain. Microvenator cellar is primitive and may be the sister taxon to all other oviraptorosaurs. The postcanines of Gobiconodon can be divided into two types depending on their shape. The ones in front were relatively simple, and are classified as premolariforms. The ones further back was more complex, and are known as molariforms. The terms premolariform and molariform should not be confused with the terms premolar and molar, which are based on tooth replacement rather than shape. The Fruitland Formation is a sedimentary geological formation containing layers of sandstone, shale, and coal. It was laid down in marshy delta conditions, with poor drainage and frequent flooding, under a warm, humid and seasonal climate. Like with all Pachycephalosaurs, the skull of Stegoceras is noted for having extreme thickening which would have resulted in a dome-like structure on top of the skull. In Stegoceras the bone that would have made up the dome would be around 75 mm at its maximum thickness. The eyes are also interesting to note as the eye sockets would have faced forwards, which means that Stegoceras would have also had a fairly good degree of stereoscopic vision, meaning depth perception. Pentaceratops, like all ceratopsians, was an herbivore. During the Cretaceous, flowering plants were geographically limited on the landscape, and so it is likely that this dinosaur fed on the predominant plants of the era, ferns, cycads and conifers. It would have used its sharp ceratopsian beak to bite off the branches which were then shredded, leaves, needles and all, by the tooth batteries, providing a self-sharpening continuous cutting edge in both upper and lower jaws. Ultimately the plant material was digested by the large gut. Because of the size of the skull, Titanoceratops is thought to have been comparable to the world-famous ceratopsian dinosaur Triceratops. Because of its huge size, Titanoceratops probably did not have to worry too much about attack once fully grown. Parasaurolophus certicristus, named in 1961 by John Ostrom. This is an interesting species of Parasaurolophus and one destined for a lot of future study. The crest of this species is much shorter than the crest of Parasaurolophus walkeri, and also has a stronger curvature to the point where the end actually reaches around the back of the skull. Parasaurolophus certicristus also seems to be the smallest known species. A 2020 study of the endocranial morphology of Bistahieversor shed light on its hunting behaviors. The large olfactory bulbs indicate a heightened sense of smell, while the elongated semicircular canals implied increased agility and sophisticated gaze stabilization while the head was moving. Bistahieversor possessed binocular vision, allowing it to see better than more primitive predatory dinosaurs. The study noted that while Bistahieversor had small optic lobes, this was not a strong indicator of whether this dinosaur possessed poor vision. The Denver Formation is known for its paleontological resources, including dinosaur remains that are found in the late Cretaceous part of the formation, and it includes aquifers that are important sources of water for the area. It ranges in thickness from 180 meters to 480 meters in the central part of the Denver Basin. Scientists do not yet know what these dinosaurs ate. Having very small, ridged teeth, they could not have chewed tough, fibrous plants like flowering shrubs as effectively as other dinosaurs of the same period. It is assumed that Pachycephalosaurs lived on a mixed diet of leaves, seeds and fruits. The sharp, serrated teeth would have been very effective for shredding plants. It is also suspected that the dinosaur may have included meat in its diet. As a ceratopsid, Polyonax would have been a large, quadrupedal herbivore, with brow and nasal horns and a neck frill. Founded upon poor remains, it is today regarded as a dubious name. Although Triceratops are commonly portrayed as herding animals, there is currently little evidence that they lived in herds. They were herbivorous, and because of their low-slung head, their primary food was probably low-growing vegetation, although they may have been able to knock down taller plants with their horns, beak and bulk. There has been much speculation over the functions of Triceratops' head adornments. The two main theories have revolved around use in combat and in courtship display, with the latter now thought to be the most likely primary function. Cionodon is a dubious genus of hadrosaurid dinosaur because, like the Polyonax, it is based on very fragmentary remains. As a hadrosaurid, Edmontosaurus was a large terrestrial herbivore. Its teeth were continually replaced and packed into dental batteries that contained hundreds of teeth, only a relative handful of which were in use at any time. It used its broad beak to cut loose food, perhaps by cropping, or by closing the jaws in a clamshell-like manner over twigs and branches and then stripping off the more nutritious leaves and shoots. Extensive bone beds are known for Edmontosaurus, and such groupings of hadrosaurids are used to suggest that they were gregarious, living in groups. One of the most controversial theories about Tyrannosaurus is if it was actually a predator at all, but instead lived the life of a scavenger. Some have said that its size, even when combined with lower weight estimates, meant that it could not run, as in both feet off the ground at the same time. The actual non-feeding lifestyle and biology of Tyrannosaurus are also subjects of interest. Because the back of the skull was wide in proportion to the tip of the snout, Tyrannosaurus had very good binocular vision. This means that it had a good sense of depth perception and knew exactly when another dinosaur was close enough to strike. Ornithomimus had legs that seem clearly suited for rapid locomotion, with the tibia about 20% longer than the femur. The large eye sockets suggest a keen visual sense, and also suggest the possibility that they were nocturnal. The diet of Ornithomimus is still debated. As theropods, ornithomimids might have been carnivorous, but their body shape would also have been suited for a partly or largely herbivorous lifestyle.